We're still seeing a lot of backlash to Donald Trump's first big foreign policy speech. You know, it was on a prompter, it was scripted. Many on the left have been ripping it. But before I get to my next guest, I want you to just sort of put this in perspective. It became a big subject in the White House briefing yesterday. This was Josh Earnest commenting on it.
I'll catch the highlights later on tonight. Apparently the phonetics are not included on the teleprompter.
All right, I always seize on these kind of things, because one thing for a White House spokesman to laugh at someone else, but for the press to merrily laugh along, it always bothers me on, I don't know, a certain, fairness level. The former Defense Undersecretary of the United States, Doug Feith, has been critical about Trump's policy as well, but more to the point whether he did miss a golden moment, some of the laughs notwithstanding, or whether that was by design, to give a big picture view of the world where America would be the center of it, which I think, from his people, was his goal. Did he succeed in doing that? What do you think?
I think that he gave a speech that was full of internal inconsistencies. I mean, on the one hand, he said we should be tough and unpredictable. But at the same time, he said we should be conciliatory and consistent and reliable. He said that we should create a stable world, but at the same time, he said he would refuse to do stability operations, which he calls nation building. He said we should have allies, but only if they're obedient, and that's an attitude that doesn't get you cooperative allies.
But, you know, he did mention to our allies, and you would know this statistics and facts far better than I, that so few, for example, in the NATO, hold up their part of the bargain. In other words, they disproportionately depend on us. I think he mentioned 4 of the 28 even commit the 2%, I guess, required to defense. And that puts a disproportionate burden on us. He said that would change with him, but I imagine, even if it were true, it's a lot easier said than done.
Well, it certainly is. The basic point that our allies should contribute more to the common defense is a point that every American president has made for decades. The question is, how do you accomplish that? The kind of boorish, demanding, hectoring tone that he adopted is very unlikely to accomplish the goal that he set out. He also set out the goal of destroying ISIS, but he provided no insight at all as to what he would do. As a matter of fact, his insistence on the destruction of ISIS suggested he thinks it's simply a matter of increasing your military effort, which ignores the fact that ISIS is in part a totalitarian ideological movement and not just an organization, and it requires more than just more military effort. So throughout, he was saying that he can accomplish all kinds of things in a magical sort of way without explaining at all how he would do it.
Well, I also think he's trying to reach beyond maybe those who know this stuff very, very well, and sound a little bit crazy by design. A lot of his aides have harkened back to Ronald Reagan, saying that there was a reason why the Iranians released those hostages on the day of Reagan's inauguration, because they thought he was crazy and they didn't want to mess with him. I don't know if there's any truth to that. But that there can be an element of shrewdness in saying what appears to be probably crazy stuff, like Ronald Reagan and the Star Wars defense shield, a space shield, that would get the Russians later to the negotiating table because they feared, you know, this guy is crazy enough to pull that off. Do you see any wisdom in that kind of strategy? What do you think?
I think that Reagan capitalized on a reputation for tough-mindedness, not really craziness. And you know, when he fired the air traffic controllers, you know, which was a domestic matter,
right,
he sent a signal that reverberated around the world. But it didn't suggest craziness. It suggested that he was a hard-headed, tough-minded guy. And I think that that's the kind of signal that can often be very beneficial. Erraticism, you know, just kind of crazy, wild behavior where you could do anything and nobody can really rely on you for being even sensible, let alone fulfilling your commitments, I don't think that makes the United States stronger or more effective in the world.
Do you think that a lot of your pals and those you work with in the Bush 43 and beyond would actually be more in favor of Hillary Clinton running foreign policy than Donald Trump?
Well, there are certain things that Trump has said that even people like myself who think that Hillary Clinton would be a terrible president, and it would be terrible to give effectively Obama a third term. But even people with those views, I think, are horrified at the idea that we would have a president like Trump who says things like, well, you have to expect that the South Koreans and the Japanese and the Saudis are all going to get nuclear weapons. I mean, he says things and has a frame of mind that suggests that he could do even more harm in many of these extremely important areas.
So it sounds like you would actually prefer Hillary Clinton to Donald Trump.
Well, it would be an extremely unpleasant choice. Let's hope that we don't have to make that choice.
But it's looking like you will. Well, who do you vote for?
Well, at this moment, one would have to say that the likely candidates are going to be Clinton and Trump, and it's a horrible thing to contemplate.
But would you give the edge to Trump because he's the Republican, or would you actually go to Hillary Clinton?
Well, I'm more interested in conservative principles than just party loyalty. Okay. And so I don't feel attached. I wouldn't feel attached to Trump simply out of party loyalty.
Very interesting. All right, Doug Feith, thank you very much. Former Undersecretary of Defense for Policy for Bush 43. All right.